Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Executive Committee meeting Wednesday, September 2nd. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our clerk will call the roll.
Allen.
Allen, present.
Ross.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Hoshite.
Here.
Iqbal. Kenyon.
Here.
Leonard. Lewis. Martin.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Shefflo.
Here.
Surges.
Surges here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weber.
Present.
Wonicky. Here. Lawson.
Here. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. I'd like to ask an old friend, Mark Foster, to come to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Even crack really good newspaper men are invited to pledge allegiance, and it's great to see you again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 5th? So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Ms. Wonicky. Are there any changes, corrections, comments? Seeing none?
Mr. Chairman, this is Ms. Thomas.
Yes, Ms. Thomas, you have the floor.
I believe at the meeting, I'm having IT confirmed.
Oh, we can't hear you, Ms. Thomas. Could you speak up?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now that's much better.
Thank you. So I
Okay,
believe I was making IT check into that. I was marked as absent.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Chairman, I believe she was in the minutes marked absent at the last meeting, so we're verifying that.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Thomas. Any other comments from anyone on the phone? Okay, hearing none, clerk, call the roll.
Allen.
Allen, aye.
Ross.
Yes.
Hanson. Hoshite.
Yes.
Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Leonard. Martin.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes.
Thomas.
Abstain.
Weber.
Yes.
Wonicky. Yes. Lawson.
Yes, and I'll only vote in cases of a tie. So that's good, thank you. Thank you, Karen.
For attendance purposes, Davist here.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Good morning.
And Starrett here as well.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Okay, public comment, action to place public comments on file. I believe that we have two people who'd like to make public comment this morning. First up, Kevin Besh, in support of the resolution for county line subdivision. So Mr. Besh, and will 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes be sufficient?
Should be very close.
Okay, let's see. I want you to feel very comfortable, but I also want everybody to be able to hear you. So whichever way you'd like to do, mask or no mask. Okay, thank you.
My name is Kevin Besh, and I'm here on behalf of County Line Subdivision in Kane County. When we moved into County Line Subdivision 27 years ago, our fire protection was provided by the St. Charles Fire Department. In 2011, St. Charles Countryside became Fox River Countryside, and our fire protection from the St. Charles Fire Department, 1.9 miles from our neighborhood, changed. In 27 years, there's been two significant events in our subdivision. First, there was a garage fire and the structure was lost. Several years later, a neighbor had a heart attack in his driveway, and according to a neighbor across the street that witnessed the entire event and recounted, he laid dying waiting for an ambulance that took a long time, too long to arrive, and he died. The Fox River Countryside Fire District facility that currently services our area is 7 miles away from our subdivision, and has admittedly not been able to provide life-saving coverage in a timely manner. It is a district that has chosen an auto aid partner 3.8 miles away from our neighborhood rather than the closer St. Charles facility that's 1.9 miles away, when time and distance can mean life or death. In a press conference in 2010, Fox River Countryside promised better response times, professional service, affordable rates for all Kane County residents, and to keep politics and political turf battles from being above people's safety. Currently, my wife and I have been attending Fox River Countryside meetings for approximately 2 years. We have a neighborhood petition with 40+ signatures seeking life-saving coverage. Fox River Countryside is unwilling to do the right thing, to use auto aid in St. Charles to cover our neighborhood. At board meetings, our requests for dialogue and our public comments have gone unanswered. We reached out to public officials regarding our situation, and many are aware of the safety and animosity issues that exist. An agreement that was in place from 5/1/19 through 4/30/20 was allowed to expire, even though St. Charles was willing to renew. In a recent conversation, the president of Fox River Countryside told us that St. Charles had elected to use the Streamwood Fire Department as an auto aid partner for St. Charles North High School rather than Fox River Countryside. It was my opinion, and it was obvious that he wasn't happy with this decision. It was further insight into the problem at hand. We reached out to mayors, fire chiefs, state, county, and township officials and the press with some success. We've obtained a resolution of support from St. Charles Township. Our state representative is looking into adding an arbitration clause into the law, and recent news article was also published on the subject. Our Kane County representative recommended that we annex to St. Charles or seek a legislative change. We're attempting to do both. But after speaking to the mayor of St. Charles, annexation entails a cost-benefit analysis, engineering studies, and a political challenge that he felt his aldermen and women did not want. And so both parties left that meeting in an agreement that the best course of action was the renewal of the previous agreement between Fox River Countryside and St. Charles. There are many interesting findings from our research that includes there is no reason to transfer Kane County families to the DuPage County-based West Chicago Fire District when there's a St. Charles facility available for auto aid 1.9 miles away that would not increase our taxes. A higher DuPage County tax rate, 3.5 to 4 times higher for the West Chicago Fire District is what going to become the new norm for 43 Kane County families. The current cost for coverage in Kane County for our 43 families is between $7,000 and $8,000 annually, but that will increase to between $30,000 and $34,000 per year for the entire 43 families. There are many DuPage County families that currently pay the lower Kane County rate. Many of the DuPage County families are closer to West Chicago Fire District facilities than we are. They're only 3.3 miles away, as opposed to the 5.0 miles between their homes and the Fox River Countryside facility. They should be asking for having closer coverage to their homes. Additionally, no DuPage County families were included in this boundary adjustment. So in conclusion, we've provided you with a petition, documents, and evidence to support our claims. There is no first responder that can service our neighborhood faster than the St. Charles facility, only 1.9 miles away. The logical and obvious conclusion is that the process of mutual aid and auto aid should be enacted between Fox River Countryside and St. Charles to provide fast response times and quality service at reasonable costs for citizens of Kane County, the goal of which Fox River Countryside when it emerged in 2011. This past year's contract highlighted the Illinois Constitution and the acts that promote cooperation between cities and districts. Please support our right to be heard and the ability to help negotiate a solution that benefits our families without adding an unnecessary financial burden. Please vote to approve a resolution of support from Kane County that we can take to the next phase of our struggle in this battle. The 43 affected families, thank you for listening and for your support.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Besch. We have a second speaker, Mary Johnson. And Ms. Johnson, is the 5 minutes?
I'm going to go for 3.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Johnson. I represent County Line Subdivision. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you about our endeavor to get a resolution of support passed today. Fox River Countryside Fire District annexation of us to West Chicago Fire District, which is located in DuPage County. Yes, you heard me right. DuPage County. We are a member of Kane County, a member of District 12. 43 families will be disconnected from Fox River Countryside Fire District and annexed to West Chicago Fire District in DuPage County, January 1st of 21. Doesn't make sense. To take tax dollars out of a cash-strapped Fox River Countryside coffers and hand over these dollars to DuPage County in the amount of approximately $30,000 a year. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense for the board of Fox River Countryside to turn a deaf ear to our concerns and then take it upon themselves to decide our fate, not allowing any of their constituents to participate in fair negotiations to obtain what we view as a fair fire and EMT coverage. It doesn't make sense for them to think that a West Chicago firehouse 3.8 miles away is a better option than St. Charles Production Drive, which is 1.9 miles away. It doesn't make sense that they, Fox River Countryside, would think that their decision-making is logical or safe for their constituents. Please keep in mind, St. Charles Fire Department, was willing and able to renew the same agreement that ended April 30th of 2020. With this firehouse being only 1.9 miles away, but the president of Fox River Countryside said, sorry, it's a done deal. You will be disconnected, annexed to West Chicago, but you're willing to come and make comments, but keep in mind, you won't change our minds. Does it make sense for Fox River Countryside to impose a stiff financial burden on our neighborhood just because they don't want to deal with St. Charles? So what would you do if your spouse lay dying in the driveway and a fire department didn't arrive on time? I started attending meetings because we had an incident. My husband fell off the roof, and when I found him, I thought he was dying. West Chicago Fire Department showed up and attended to him. 10 minutes later, here comes Fox River Countryside. Fox River Countryside fought over who was going to take my husband to the hospital. Now keep in mind, I thought he was dying. I was confused by this. And so I started attending meetings at Fox River Countryside to understand what was going on. What I found out is they make a lot of their revenue from ambulance coverage. Okay? So we got involved in a big way. We want to protect our neighborhood. I do believe Fox River Countryside was irritated with my involvement in their meetings. We became known as the Couts Road people, and that we wanted services without paying for them. They never established a dialogue with us. They accused us of being the reason why their referendums didn't pass. And maybe if we pledge our support to them and vote for their referendums, they'll help us out. I couldn't believe my ears. Republican strategist Steve Smith, let me repeat, Republican strategist Steve Smith once said that if you really want a taste of how government runs, start at the local level. This inside will keep me involved from here on out and to work on behalf of my neighborhood and my community. I ask you today, please vote yes for a resolution of support, simple support, a resolution of support to do the right thing for our neighborhood and our 43 families. Our fight for fairness is not over. We are grateful to State Representative Karina Villa, who will work on behalf of our plight and try and get a bill passed so that nobody goes through this again, so that you have an arbitration ability. We are also grateful to St. Charles Township Supervisor Ron Johnson and would be for his support in passing a resolution. Very grateful to him, and we would be grateful for your support today and a yes vote for this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, is there any other public comment? Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment this morning? Seeing none in the audience, anyone on the phone? Hearing none, thank you very much for coming this morning. On the monthly financial report, I called over to Joe Onsick's office. He's away for a couple of days this week, getting ready for the final push on the budget. So he's not here. Is there anyone from finance who's here to make a report? And I don't see anyone. And we called up to see if there was going to be a substitute. The report is available to the board members on file. And knowing Joe, he's always available for comment. Okay, next on the agenda, preliminary county board agenda for September 8th, next Tuesday. The first county development, Mr. John Martin. I believe that you'd like to present and move one item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have one item, which is an ordinance providing for the issue of revenue notes, which is the county's support for the clean energy program that we have approved months past.
Okay.
I move that and request.
So moved by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Hanson. Are there any thoughts, comments? Seeing none, any from anyone participating by phone? Hearing none, clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Perez.
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal.
Yes.
Kenyon. Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Dufflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki.
Okay, the motion passes, and that'll be included on the consent agenda on Tuesday morning. Under executive, we've listed two, or I've listed two items. The second item will defer to later on in the board meeting. I got a call from Carl Tomenberg, our labor attorney specialist, and he says that final approval is still in state's attorney's hands. He was in touch with Michelle Neerman, and then there's a final piece that Sheriff Hain wanted Joe Onsick to do a final to the penny projection of what that costs as far as a budget adjustment. So we're going to have to defer that, but I'll bring it forward off consent for next Tuesday's board meeting, just to give you as much notice as I have. If you'd like any copies of those, it looks like it's a final agreement. It looks fine. It's inconsistent. It's consistent with labor management guidelines. So I anticipate that it'd be approved. I'll support it, but it'll come to you on Tuesday. And then the first item is a resolution in support of county line subdivision. I believe that Ms. Allen, you'd like to make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would indeed.
Okay, so Ms. Allen moves and Dr. Iqbal seconds. Ms. Allen, did you want to lay out what the what that resolution does?
Yes, with your permission, thank you. I'm asking for support from the board because we've had various neighborhoods who have had problems like this in the past. They are orphan areas, and the services or resources that are provided to them are sometimes inconsistent or difficult to manage. And these folks are asking for our help because they were surprised when they were told they were going to be de-annexed. They are all residents of Kane County. They learned there would be a large price to pay by virtue of being transferred from one fire district to another. And they had every reason to want to continue because the closest fire station was connected to St. Charles, and that is who was providing their services. So it made sense to them that they wanted to continue with that plan. There's also a fairness issue. When this de-annexation occurred, it did not include their neighbors. There are people on the other side of the county line who will continue to be serviced by the Fox River people. The chairman of that board, who lives outside of the immediate area, will continue to be serviced. But these folks who live in Kane County and have had a happy and safe situation are now being moved forcibly to another entity. So they are like us, they are activists. They jumped into the situation and they are talking to the people who are most involved with them and trying to work out a solution. They're asking for our support. I'm hoping the rest of the board will be willing to give them that support. I'm really sorry to not be there with you today. I would much rather be with you than here, but thank you for letting me speak on their behalf.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, hearing none or seeing none. Any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Brass,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshite,
Yes.
Igbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicki,
Okay, the motion passes. It'll be placed on the consent agenda Tuesday morning. Our Chairman of Finance and Budget, John Hoshite, I believe that you'd like to present and move 15 items this morning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move all 15 items.
Good. So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Dr. Iqbal. Mr. Hoshite, would you rise? And I believe that you have 15 descriptions.
All right. Yeah, we don't have the handheld mics, that's why I wasn't.
Oh, I'm very
raised.
sorry.
Okay, so number one authorizes a transfer of the fund balance in the Juvenile Drug Court Fund to the Adult Drug Rehabilitation Court Fund. The second item is a budget adjustment regarding grant revenue. Item 3 is a budget adjustment for the JJC Farm to School program. 4 authorizes a budget adjustment for the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Thank you. Item 5 accepts a financial grant for the Farmer Mini Grant Program. 6 authorizes the county board chairman and clerk to enter into grant agreements so that we can expedite the receipt of those funds. 7 authorizes intergovernmental agreement between the state and the JJC Justice Council grant. 8 authorizes purchase of replacement hazardous materials and, to replace the damaged hazardous materials and devices magazine along with proper protective berm construction. 9 allows an amendment to the Fifth Third Bank commercial card program. 10 extends the contract with Huddleston McBride for drainage services. 11 extends our contract for our audit services. 12 approves our annual monthly health and dental contributions. 13 allows hiring of replacement personnel. 14 allows rehiring of a part-time kennel assistant. And 15 is our monthly payment of our bills.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoshite, and I apologize for slow in getting the handheld to you. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, any from anyone participating by phone? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Brass,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshite, Igbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Dufflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Thomas, Thomas,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Thomas, I couldn't hear. Was that a yes, no, or abstain?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki,
Okay, the motion passes. All 15 will be added to the consent agenda on Tuesday. I'd also like to thank our IT team, along with administration, the facilities management, for the enormous improvement to the sound system in this room. Now it's practical. Now, we can hear each other, and it's much easier on people who attend the meeting in the public, either in person or by phone. Next is Judicial Public Safety. Mr. Leonard's not with us today, but let's see, our Vice Chairman of Judicial Public Safety, is that you, Mr. Martin? Are you the Vice Chairman? I don't know. Okay. Would anyone like to move the restatement and amendment, Section 2, Ordinance 11400, establishing the Judicial Public Safety Technology Commission as previous amended to establish the terms of the position of the chairman of that committee, which is the Judicial Public Safety Technology Commission?
I will move that.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Martin, second by Dr.
Alan,
Iqbal. Oh, okay, sorry. Ms. Allen, I saw Dr. Iqbal's hand go up before I heard your voice, so.
and that's just fine.
Okay, you'll get a chance to vote yes, and first. So any discussion, comment? Seeing none, any from anybody on phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Alan voting first, aye.
Fries,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin, Sanchez,
Yes.
Dufflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Thomas, Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki,
Thomas, yeah.
Thomas, yes. Thank you.
And was, Ms.
Yes.
Wodnicki, did we record Ms. Wodnicki's? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much to everybody. Next is Chairman of Transportation Drew Fraz. I believe that you'd like to present and move 4 items.
Yeah, 4 items. I will move all 4.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Fraz, second by Dr. Iqbal. Mr. Fraz.
The first item is a release of covenants, easements, and restrictions along Orchard Road near Galena Boulevard intersection. This is as requested by the neighbors in the adjoining West Reamers subdivision at the southeast corner. Essentially, KDOT owns part of a parcel there. I shouldn't say own, but it has easements on it. And the neighbors are working through their covenants and that, and it was looked at by staff and decided that we should just release them all because this comes up fairly regularly. Item 2 approves an agreement between Kane County and the Kane County Forest Reserve for acquisition and compensation for the right-of-way along Kirk Road in front of the Cougar Stadium. This is part of the Kirk Road Bridge reconstruction, and it amounts to $125,000 in cash plus improvements with a total value of $598,000. Item 3 approves an amendment to the Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services Agreement for the Kirk Fabian intersection improvements. The amendment is in the amount of $129,299 with Corsa Group, and this covers an additional 10 weeks of duration of the project due to utility conflicts that arose. And the last item, number 4, approves an agreement with A to B LLC out of Downers Grove in the amount of $4,664,416. This is for the installation, maintenance, and operation of the toll collection system for Longmeadow Parkway. It's a 6-year term with an option to extend for 2 years. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fraz. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Fries,
Yes.
Hanson, Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sheffield,
Yes.
Burgess,
Surges, yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Oniki. Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Next, the chairman of CAC committee, Mr. Hoshait.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are two resolutions that the committee is asking be moved on to the full board for consideration. The first resolution is a resolution, it's more of a housekeeping matter. Early on in the process, we agreed that once grant applications were submitted and vetted through our consultant, through the state's attorney's office, that instead of having to come back to the full board for final approval, the state's attorney's office was authorized to direct the treasurer to make disbursement of the funds promptly. And the purpose for that setup was to get the funds out in the hands of the grant recipients as soon as possible. The second resolution is the result of the work of the committee regarding the approval of the allocation of the balance of the funds that we had set aside for the county purposes. Our committee went through an analysis of those projects and pared them down and within $365,000, reduce them to the available funds. So there is a request that we're moving forward in a resolution format that would allow those projects to move forward. And Mr. Ronzik had sent me an email yesterday with more detail that would have the corresponding budget adjustments that would allow those to occur. So the second resolution approves those expenditures and then authorizes the budget adjustment that would correspond to those. So I'll move both of those.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I believe it was moved by Mr. Hoshait, seconded by Dr. Iqbal already. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Shefflo, please rise.
Okay. So I don't actually have any comments or questions specifically on these resolutions, but I did want to speak to the home-based businesses. I don't know if this is an appropriate time or the only opportunity today to talk about it.
We'll have committee. Thank you very much for raising that. I have the same question, but we'll do that under committee reports.
Thank you.
And I'll ask you to speak first, okay? Okay, so any other comments or questions for these two resolutions? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Miss Allen.
Just this question. I thought that we had decided to set aside some money for libraries and that they would be included with these other government or quasi-governmental entities. Are they going to be covered with a different resolution?
I think that it is a different resolution. I think that that may have been passed at the special meeting recently. So I think that that has already been final acted upon by the board at the last special meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Also, we'll need to adjust the titles. Yesterday, we received the two resolutions from the state's attorney's office, Mr. Lulvis, and just for the record, and I'll ask Karen to, let's keep the two that we have on as flexible so that the CAC can move on any action that they need to and want to act on. But the resolutions are titled Authorizing Kane County State's Attorney's Office to Execute Agreements for the Distribution of CARES Act Funds to Units of Government. Is that correct, Mr. Hoshait? Yes. Okay. The second title is Authorizing Reimbursement from CARES Act Fund to Kane County Departments and Elected Officials for Non-Payroll Expenses. Is that it? Okay, correct. So those titles will be adjusted and put then onto the consent agenda. Let's see. Just for the record, and I think that the intention, and you said it in your comments, that the state's attorney, as the program, like the administrator, can move it forward through the normal path of the treasurer's office and the auditor. So that clarification requested by the auditor and the treasurer participating. And so that's understood. Perhaps on Tuesday, you could clarify just as you did today. So thank you. Okay, are there any other actions that the CAC needs, Mr. Hoshait?
No.
Okay, is anything else that is wanted in that area?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. And then we'll go to committee reports so we can discuss, all the committee's interests. Executive session, no. Oh, excuse me, I guess that would be helpful. So on those two motions, clerk will call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Ross,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Igbo,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sheffler,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wonicky. Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. No need for executive session. Committee reports. Are there any of the chairmen who would like to give a report to the executive committee this morning?
Mr. Chairman, Allen here.
Yes, Ms. Allen?
Just to remind everyone that we are planning our celebration about our new building for after the county board meeting next Tuesday. There will be cookies and balloons and celebrating. So hope everyone will be able to fit it into their schedule. Thank you. Mr. Frost, did you want to add anything?
Nope, you covered it. We'll be ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Other reports for the good of the cause? Okay, so now over to the CAC committee, Mr. Shefflow.
Yes, sounds loud. I had a question on the home-based businesses. I think everybody got emails. Hopefully they did, maybe not. A particular woman who objecting to not being eligible for the business grants. I think it was during the recession. She moved her business out of getting rid of the overhead of an office, moved it into her house. She's like a graphic designer, so it's basically sitting on a computer. It looks to be a substantial business. I recognize some of the entities from her website. I had two other examples. So I know another gentleman during the recession gave up his overhead, does his, he's an auctioneer. He does his bookkeeping and that type of administrative work out of his house. Of course, and then he also rents storage facilities, but they're not offices. So he asked me, does he have a physical location or is that a home-based business? Because he does have to work in those facilities from time to time. The third one is just the accountant that I use in my law office. He's not in Kane County, but he's been an accountant probably for 40 years. He's done Anderson Animal Shelter, the Geneva Country Club. He has a home office. He's CPA. I'm not sure if he's a CPA, but he operates out of his house. It's substantial, successful, full-time business. So I raised that issue. I think there should be some sort of allocation for them or eligibility. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was no real deliberation about home-based businesses or why they don't qualify or what's wrong with them. Or if I'm wrong on that, please correct me. But I think they should be included if they're substantial. If we're worried about the occasional eBay seller of knickknacks or something, one thing I thought of is maybe having revenue, like minimum annual revenue of some number, 10,000, 24,000, something like that, so that it's an actual ongoing business that incurred expenses. That's my idea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shefflow. So if I'm not mistaken, what you're asking for is a clarification to include, like, for instance, I've also received a couple of emails. One was a designer, another was a printing company. The lady's comment when I called back was, I have large contracts with the city of Elgin. And her words were, they take me seriously, wouldn't you want to? And I know that it's not a matter of not taking anyone seriously, but I think, Mr. Scheffler, what you're asking for is a clarification on that item. And I would ask the chairman or any member of the CAC committee if that could be done, maybe discussed on Monday, and then maybe put forward, we could reserve a spot for any language of clarification that you would want on Tuesday, if that's what the committee would prefer. So, Mr. Hoshait?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just several comments. First of all, to suggest that we didn't consider this is inaccurate. We've had multiple meetings, weekly meetings, hours at a time, where we talked about every issue and the criteria. So when we established the business grant program or recommended its establishment, we talked about a number of criteria to make sure or to come up with an idea of those businesses that would satisfy the requirements. I think the basis for the requirement that it not be a home-based business, that they actually have a physical structure. In order to understand that, you've got to really understand the criteria to qualify for the grant. The grant program is not a grant program to allow for replacement of revenue, at least under the current rules. That's true for government, it's true for businesses. And the qualified expenses the bulk of the qualified expenses that will be subject to reimbursed are clearly established in our grant criteria. Recognize that we're talking about a period from roughly the beginning of March through the end of this year. And the expenses, the bulk of those expenses that will be incurred will be rent and related expenses. My guess is when we get the grant applications in, it'll be primarily rent or payments related to being able to retain their facility. With home-based businesses, you typically wouldn't see rent. Most home-based businesses, if they're that substantial, I would question whether they're even zoned for that use. My guess is most home-based businesses take the homestead exemption on their real estate tax bill, saying it's their home, not their business. And my guess is, to the extent that there are mortgages on those properties, the individuals are deducting the mortgage interest on their tax returns, saying it's for the ownership of the residence. So all of those things would be inconsistent with calling it a business. Now, if there's other expenses that those entities have that would qualify for reimbursement, and they didn't get a PPP loan for those, because again, our grant requires that you didn't receive reimbursement for under another program, I would be surprised, but that's the background that got us to the point where we're at with our current program. If there's a desire now to change the program, that's certainly the will of the board to do that, and we can consider that. Normally, we meet weekly. This coming Monday's Labor Day, so we chose not to meet. So we will be meeting the following Monday. If we can certainly take this back to committee for consideration. However, I know there's timing issues and we want to get the process moving forward. So that's the background for it. I'm open to any other questions.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that background. Dr. Iqbal.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I concur with Mr. Scheffler that this resolution, which went from CAC committee direct to the special board meeting, is questionable. On the face, if you ask me, it is unconstitutional because it excludes people and includes and prefers other group of people. So we would like to have it reviewed by a constitutional expert who can tell us that, yes, it is constitutional. To me, it is not. And I don't want to lose taxpayers' money in a class action lawsuit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Iqbal. Would it be all right to request that from state's attorney, or would you like to address that now? Mr. Hoshait.
The state's attorney's office has participated in our process from day one, and so if there's a question regarding constitutionality, I would certainly welcome the state's attorney's input on that. I would state that in choosing our model and our criteria, we chose, we used as reference sources the programs from other states, from other counties, and actually federal government programs. So to the extent that we're suggesting is unconstitutional, there's a problem on a national basis. I would also state that, I got a call yesterday from someone who I would have otherwise considered to be a small business and would have fit the criteria that if he came and made a presentation today, but his annual revenues were slightly over $3 million. And we set the limit to 2.5 million in revenue. And so the question is why can't he apply? And, by its nature, small business grant programs, which have existed for a number of years, have to have some criteria, and that was a criteria we suggested. Again, we can certainly change the criteria if the majority of the board supports that, but I just want to tell you that we did that research in establishing our program and chose that as the basis for it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shefflow for a second time.
Thank you. So I guess my response to Mr. Hoshait would be that a home-based business could be included just like any other business. However, they wouldn't, with the stipulation that there would be no rental claim for the home, so that the auctioneer who does have storage facilities rented, could perhaps claim that rental. But so in other words, you can include them. They're still only going to get what they're eligible for under the program. So maybe just the clarification that or it would have to be a decision of the board that we wouldn't entertain claims for home rent, I guess. And if that knocks them all out of actually succeeding, then that may be the way it has to be, but that might be a solution. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions, input for the CAC committee? Okay. Seeing none. Anyone on the phone? Okay. So two, I also would ask and encourage the CAC committee to take another look at that, maybe clarify the eligibility criteria, home, not home, Microsoft, Hewlett Packard. These are companies that started in garages and at homes. There are countless number. We have even many, not just some, but many in Kane County that have started that. Actually, there are many of examples. The idea of just eligible expenses are going to be granted, which is the point that Mr. Hoshait helped to clarify for all of us. It's important. Maybe I know that there are lists of businesses, small businesses, between $50,000 of revenue. So what Mr. Shefflow had said, maybe a range of 50,000, maybe 10,000, I think the number that you mentioned in revenue, to the 2.5 million, any of those. I think I'd ask the members of the executive committee to give some more thought to this. At the next CAC, I think it's important to have a report addressing Dr. Iqbal's item. It can just be an item on the agenda, and then a report by the state's attorney if the chairman and committee would like. And then perhaps further discussion of clarifying that eligibility. Would that be all right with, first of all, the CAC committee, the chairman, and members of that committee? Would that be okay to pursue it, or would we need to take a different approach?
I have no objection. I guess this issue of constitutionality is somewhat interesting because one could argue that the programs that establish grants and contracts that require minority businesses to get a share of it could be argued unconstitutional as well. Because if I'm not a minority business, I wouldn't have an opportunity to participate. So I really think that's a red herring, but certainly I'll raise the issue with the state's attorney and,
Yes.
would a memo take a look at that.
Would a memo suffice? I mean, if not on the agenda for a short report, perhaps a memo addressing that from the state's attorney?
Sir, I'll discuss it with the state's attorney and then we can bring it back to committee for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see, no, just one other item. My guess, although, I've attended all the meetings, listened into all the meetings, I do appreciate, again, as I've said before, how difficult it is to run county operations. It is harder to do any of that in any of the departments. What the professional staff does every day, very difficult. What CAC is doing, it's a very tough thing. Totally in charge now for the past 2 months, and so can do what the committee and then the board desires. Eventually, the committee's operational performance will be evaluated both by our constituents, by history, but it's so much more difficult than it appears on the surface. And I think that it's just starting, because when the grant applications come in, that's when the load is probably toughest. Is there a standard for follow-up questions from the public? Are we keeping a log? One of the things that we do internally in the county is that every telephone call that comes in, every email that comes in is responded to. We can make lots of mistakes in our business, but if you present yourself to constituents who have a need or a complaint, if you just call, just respond in email, if you have a log of those calls and emails, they'll forgive a lot of shortcomings in individuals and in group, as long as they know that they're being responded to. So is there a standard for follow-up that's been established within the CAC committee? For instance, we had a question that came into the county board office 2 days ago. We sent that over to Scott Berger. We have not heard back from Scott Berger. We have an open question from one of the constituents who called us. Is there going to be a standard, like a log? Can you give us what the thoughts are on that at this point?
I'm not aware of a formal log being established. I know that as you are aware, we've just approved a number of the grant programs. And as they're being implemented, we're having work sessions that everyone can participate in and ask questions, and we provide answers to them. So someone who would claim that they don't know what's going on, or they haven't heard about a grant program, or haven't been able to participate, we're bending over backwards to accommodate that. What I'll do, if you have any specific comments, Fabiola Guzman is the person, that's the point person, who's been working with the committee as a liaison with the public, and we can certainly direct her to respond directly to questions or concerns promptly. And if there's matters that need clarification from the committee, she certainly can send them to us for review.
That's a very helpful start right there. Is when we send questions to someone, it ought to be to Fabiola.
Yes.
So that's an important piece, and I know that has been said many times, not many times, but routinely in the CAC meeting. But I don't think that there are more than 100 people who are attending CAC meetings. And we have 532,000 constituents who can either directly or indirectly be affected. So at some point, I know that we have set up the initial pieces on the website. That's going to be very good. And then, as we publicize the availability of $20,000 pieces of taxpayer money to support small business and also grants for the nonprofit organizations. So the idea of the point of contact and response would be Fabiola. If I could suggest some type of a log, there's no question then that everything's been followed up on. So then, let's see, Mr. Shefflow, on this item or a committee report?
Yeah, could we perhaps ask Fabiola if I haven't already received an email from her outgoing to the board to say, this is my contact information, so that we can utilize that if we have a issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good suggestion. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoshite, and to the members of the committee. Let's see, other committee reports. Okay, we have another very tough project ahead of us, and that is the election of 2020. I know that the county clerk is doing enormous work. The public service committee is on this. I know that Cliff Surgis, are you still on the line with us?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, you had sent over a note that was, may I have your permission to read it? You had sent it over to the county clerk appropriately, to me, and then I believe that I passed it on to Mr. Shefflow as the chairman of the Public Service Committee. May I just read that quickly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It said to Mr. Cunningham, I received the attached screenshot from an outraged constituent and dear friend on behalf of the person who made the post. Briefly, the widow of a decedent is livid that her husband, who hasn't lived in Kane County for 15 years and has been deceased for 6 years, has received an invitation to vote by mail. They reached out to me for answers as to how this could possibly happen. I am now requesting your attention to the matter. Feel free to call as needed. And then Cliff Surgis. Did you want to, this is an important thing. I've received several pieces of correspondence, calls. Is there anything that you would either want to pursue on that one? It's so important to the credibility of what we all do that it's, fair elections. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Mr. Surgis? And then I'll ask for any comments, because I know an enormous amount of work is going in and care is going into these elections. So Mr. Surgis first.
Mr. Chairman, my initial pokes into this have come out that there seems to be letters. There's not, bottom line is there's not a clean cut answer. The clerk's office communicated that they do not believe that the letter was generated from them, and that indicators are that there are several groups out there that are generating their own letters that look very similar to what might come as an official notice, it causing confusion as to the origin of the letter. In this particular case, the widow did not retain the letter. I mean, she was furious. She ripped it up. She yelled and screamed, and we wish that wouldn't have happened, so we had a copy of it. I'm continuing to try and find answers to where this information is coming from, but suffice it to say, I'm pretty nervous when something like this happens. And for me, this was a neighbor, a dear, dear trusted friend. And to learn of this, it was just upsetting to say the least.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Surgis. I know that this is a very difficult project. Mr. Shefflow, thank you for your help.
Yeah, I have toured the clerk's facility and the letter processing machine that the clerk has over there, and it's quite interesting. But I guess the good news, these are not ballots that are going out. These are the form that's used to apply for a ballot, and political parties or other interest groups can send out that public form. It's a public document. And so some people are receiving 3 or 4 of these applications. So if it wasn't coming from the clerk, it could have been coming from someone else. And I think they're free to use any database they want. I think they could mail to any household. I don't think it has to be a registered voter. So if a non-registered voter sends that back in, it would be hopefully caught by the clerk's office. So I don't know, I agree it's an enormous challenge. This equipment that the clerk has is it's high speed and it's accurate and it does amazing things. However, there's a lot of ballot handling. So ballots come in, then they've got to be loaded, and then they get sorted, and then they get moved again. So this paper ballot is it's just a lot of handling. So between the home and they could put it in the mail system, or they hand deliver it, it has to go to Carroll Stream, and then it comes back out. It has to go to the local or to Geneva Post Office, I presume. Then in the clerk's office, it's handled and rehandled several times. The idea that it's the solution to voting, I'm not quite yet convinced. When in Kane County, you had a database, each voting machine was an electronic database with a paper backup, and there was virtually no human hands involved in that tabulation, but we will see.
Okay, a couple of, would it be possible for the Public Service Committee to ask the county clerk and his staff to prepare like a flow chart of how, where applications to vote by mail can come from? I have heard people say absentee ballots in the past have worked fine, but I understand we're way beyond that point. Last time I heard a number, it was nearly 77,000 requests for vote by mail have been received by the Kane County clerk. Could a flow chart be laid out on a single sheet of paper, where those come from, and then what procedures take place? Where are the safeguards on confidentiality? The idea that when absentee ballots are opened, I understand that there are partisan judges, that is a check and balance on, somebody just can't enter a number of those ballots. And is that done someplace in that system, and where is it done? But a flow chart that would be then distributed to the people who are in charge, and that's all of the members of the board, of making sure that it's an accurate election. I know that at a certain point, speed is important because people expect to have an answer on, who won an election, who's going to be representing them. However, really important is going to be accuracy. So I have had the privilege of working in data centers when I was 15 years old in the midnight shift, when it was still the punch cards that went through and all the things went down the line. I mean, it was in the old days. And the expression then was, if garbage goes in, garbage comes out. So speed can be an enemy of accuracy. And so, but I understand that the county clerk wants everything to be accurate and as quick as possible. So if that kind of communication, those kinds of assurances to our constituents can be made public and then disseminated to newspapers, but primarily to the people in charge of those elections are sitting in this room, plus 10 other members of the board. So I know it's a big job, and it's dangerous this year. So, and the heat's up. So thank you, Doug. Thank you to all the members. Are there any other thoughts that anybody would want to share?
Mr. Chairman, Sanchez.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it is important to remember in this conversation that, yes, any entity can send out applications to any list that they have that may not be updated, and the voter lists themselves may not be updated. And if, let's say, someone were trying to commit fraud, they wanted to hand in some of these extra applications, and let's say it got through the system and the ballots were sent back. In order to turn those ballots in and have them actually be counted, the signatures have to match the signatures of that person on their voter registration card. I've been an election judge before, and seeing it firsthand, it's really hard to fake that. And when there's a question that arises, you now have to have a panel of 3 election judges who verify the signature. And that has to include both Republican and Democrat election judges. So it's a very tight, secure system, and they don't have to be signature experts handwriting experts in order to verify somebody's signature. It's pretty obvious, and it's a very strong system. So I just want to add that into the conversation and make sure we're remembering that that is the process we have for ballots themselves, not the applications, but the ballots themselves. They have to be signature verified. And so it's very important we remember that because that is the security of our system, and that is what is going to ensure that we have accuracy.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Very important observation. Okay, other comments? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Thank you very much for the reports. What you do is becoming more important every day, every moment. So I appreciate your devotion to proper service to 532,000 constituents in Kane County. A motion to adjourn, so moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Dr. Iqbal. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Fries,
Yes.
Hanson, Olshate,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Winnicki? Yes.
We are adjourned.